Now, research tells us that up to 70% of us suffer from some form of sickness during pregnancy. Now, that's a huge percentage of us. I know when I was pregnant with my daughter, it took taken me 5 years to successfully get pregnant. And I was so happy that I was pregnant, but I felt so rubbish. And I remember phoning my sister and going, I've never been so happy to feel so sick in my entire life. And the joys of being pregnant did kind of start to go down as I carried on feeling more and more and got more and more sick. And I think actually I probably would have been hospitalised, and I did have hyperemesis, which is the condition that you can get when you can't keep anything down. But I managed to survive on very limited foods, but by really trying to think wider as to what I could eat. So the information I'm going to give to you today is based on research, but also from my own experiences as well. So I just hope it's useful to you. One thing that I do want you to really urge and really ensure that you do go is you do go to your doctor if you really cannot keep anything down. This is real. This is not you just thinking it's going to pass away. This is a real illness, and if you cannot eat anything, you're literally constantly being sick, please do not suffer in silence. Please go and see someone, because there is help there, and you really do. This is a serious medical condition if you really cannot take anything, eat anything at all, and you do need to go and see your doctor. So what can you do? What are the things that you can do? Well, the first thing we're going to talk about is sleep. Sleep is vital. When you're pregnant with your second child, or your third, or your fourth, or your fifth, or whatever, it can mean that you get sicker, and that's often to do because in fact you're having to look after other children. And in your first pregnancy, you often get the chance to catch up on your sleep a lot more. So do try to get sleep as much as you can. It really will help with those feelings of nausea. Just get yourself off to bed whenever you can, put your head down when you can. So make sure you get that all important sleep. The next tip is fresh air. Fresh air is really, really good. And just going out for walks in the fresh air can really help you feel better. I think we have this temptation to kind of hibernate and curl up into a little ball in a darkened room. But actually, if you get out and move, and gentle exercise can really help to take away those feelings of nausea. So do try and do that if you can. The other thing is to build in distractions, short distractions. I'm really lucky because I would teach in short blocks, so I teach a class for an hour, and I found that I could just about focus and cope for an hour. And when I was teaching that class, I felt a lot better than afterwards when I didn't have anything to think about. So short distractions, hopefully pleasant ones, so maybe by socialising, being in groups of people, talking to people, can actually really help. And I think the thing with this is it's very different for different people, and you've got to find out what works for you. So try all these things, see how you can make it work. The next tip is to avoid the kitchen as much as you can. Food smells can really be off-putting. I can remember meat being just like the smell of meat was just really, really off-putting to me. So being in the kitchen can be really off-putting. The other one for me was garlic as well. Couldn't stand the smell of garlic. And I'm not saying that's going to happen to you. It's different for every person. So where you can, do your food prep when you're feeling good, and then try and prepare things ahead of time. You can also, obviously, this is the time when you might need to actually buy some pre-prepared foods. And there's so much pre-prepared food out there now that is really healthy for you to eat. So do think about doing that. But where you can, get some support. Get your partner to support you, get family members to support you, get them to do the cooking, so that you don't actually have to be in that kitchen, because just being in the kitchen can make you feel worse. So let's look at food cravings. I had some bizarre cravings, really strange. One of the things that I found was that lots of foods tasted incredibly sweet to me. So for example, these oats here, a bowl of porridge, I felt like I was eating a bowl of sugar. It was very bizarre. Things like the rice here, it just tasted really sweet, and it just made me throw up. I just couldn't handle it at all. So sometimes you have to think out of the box a little bit with what foods you can eat. So one of the reasons why I was probably not able to stomach some of these foods is that the gluten's in the food and the sugars in the food. So, for example, dairy has quite a lot of sugars in there. Lactose is a sugar, and that was what was making it taste so sweet to me. So try and look at alternatives. So I found I couldn't eat cow's cheese, but I could eat goat's cheese. Now, I don't know whether that was just me, but that's something that I found I could do. So just by widening what you can eat. So for example, I couldn't eat oats, I couldn't eat wheat, but I could eat buckwheat. So I made myself lots of buckwheat pancakes, and that again enabled me to survive. So there are foods out there that you can eat. If you have a distinct aversion to eating meat, then look at what alternatives there are out there. Obviously, if you're vegetarian, well, meat's not going to be an issue, but there obviously are lots of vegetarian alternatives. Pulses, beans, nuts. Quinoa is a really good grain. It's very high in protein as well as carbohydrate, so that's something that's a really healthy thing for you to be eating. Now, thinking of those aversions, but also those cravings. So often we crave salty things, yeah? So rather than going for the packet of crisps, maybe have some of these breadsticks, which have maybe a little bit of salt in them, but not quite as high levels of salt, and obviously of fat, and not as a little bit healthier alternative. Things like pretzels are maybe a little bit better to have than some of your other kind of crunchy things or salty things that you would want. Now moving on to crunchy things, so we often feel that we like that crunch in foods. Look at vegetables that are nice and crunchy, so things that you can turn into crudités, such as cucumber, carrots and celery sticks. They will give you that crunch that you often crave. We often crave sour things, which is why there's that craving that you hear of women having pickles with ice cream, or wanting that sour, sweet kind of taste. Think of other things that can give you that sourness. I used to eat grapefruits until they were going out of fashion because it helped me with that sour craving. So think about putting maybe some lemon juice into some water, or having it as a hot tea, having lemon juice tea. You can think of other alternatives to sour foods that maybe, like the pickles, aren't necessarily as nutriently as good for you. Obviously having things like lemon juice is really good to aid your digestion as well, having that in water, so not a bad thing for you to be having. Often we crave those stodgy foods, so you just want to eat lots and lots of stodgy white bread. Where you can, see if you can think of alternatives, such as a baked potato, maybe even a sweet potato, or you can have an ordinary baked potato where you can maybe cook it in a slightly healthier way than your chips or your roast potatoes. Think of other ways that you can actually cook things that maybe you wouldn't normally think of. The other thing to really think about is the fact that there is medication that you can take. I remember being really scared about that because obviously you don't want to. I know I particularly didn't want to take any medication when I was pregnant, but there are some really safe medications that you can take, and this is why you must speak about this with your doctor. And even if you're not completely flawed by your sickness, but it's really hampering you and possibly affecting how you feel and affecting your mood significantly, and can make you really depressed as well. So go and see your doctor, because the chances are there is some medication out there that you can take and will help you feel so much better. The last thing to think about, and this is really a very, very important one, is being able to drink enough water. We need 2 to 3 litres of water every single day. And if you are throwing up, you need more, because you're literally losing a lot of that water, and it's really important that you replenish it and rehydrate. Being dehydrated is going to make you feel sicker. So one thing you can do is to really sip teeny tiny amounts of water, because just having one kind of gulp of water can make you feel sick and make you sick again, and you just throw it back up, so it's not doing you any good. So try using the little syringes that we use often for children to give them their medication. So a 5 millilitre syringe is like literally a teaspoon of water, and you're just thinking, how can that do me any good? But if you drink that, say every 3 to 5 minutes, you're drinking 5 millilitres of water either in a syringe or through a teaspoon, it might mean that you don't throw it back up. So just time it and make sure that you're having it at regular intervals, and you can try it every 5 minutes, and then maybe if you're finding that's okay, you can maybe reduce it to 4 every 3 minutes, but just make sure that you're sipping on that water so that you can keep and maintain your hydration.